your stomach drops. It feels like a physical gut punch. It is common to blame yourself in that moment, to feel defensive or sensitive. But that sudden flash of anxiety is actually a deeply ingrained biological reflex. To understand why a simple piece of advice can make us sweat, we have to look at how our bodies actually work. It comes down to a craving for stability, the trap of the comfort zone, the shock of seeing our own flaws, and the very real biology of mental strain. Your nervous system interprets that helpful tip as a direct threat. Your body operates like a built-in thermostat, constantly pulling your heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature back to a predictable center. This internal balancing act is called homeostasis. Your cells are incredibly happy in this stable state. Keeping the status quo requires almost no effort, making it the biological equivalent of coasting downhill. But when an outside force pushes you out of that balance, the system panics. If you sprint up a flight of stairs, your oxygen levels drop. Your body has to scramble, pumping your heart faster and breathing heavier just to fix the imbalance and get back to normal. Because your biology is obsessed with conserving energy, it views any disruption to its peaceful routine as a direct attack on its resources. This obsession with stability applies to your mind, too. To save energy, your brain quickly builds routines so it can put everyday tasks on autopilot. Think about when you first learned to drive. It took exhausting effort just to keep the car in the lane. But after a few months, you could steer and hold a conversation easily. Once you hit a basic level of proficiency, your brain locks into a good enough comfort zone. Here we see a sphere rolling effortlessly on a flat track. Just like this sphere, you can keep moving forward on autopilot without spending any extra mental energy. But if you decide to become a much better driver, or if you try to improve at anything, you have to force that autopilot off. You have to start climbing a hill, burning precious mental energy to figure out what you're doing wrong. Your brain actively keeps you in that comfortable zone, simply because true improvement costs too much biological energy. This brings us to feedback. Feedback is an external force that violently yanks you out of your low-energy autopilot state. If left alone, your brain will happily maintain the illusion that whatever you are doing is perfectly fine. It wants you to believe your performance is flawless, so you don't have to work any harder. When someone points out a mistake, they break that illusion. They force your brain to see the flaws it was actively trying to hide. We hate hearing criticism because it forces the brain to admit its routine isn't working anymore. It means the comfortable autopilot has to be switched off, and the hard work has to begin again. Look at this photo of a marathon runner in the middle of a race. When an athlete pushes well past their physical limits, their muscles burn, their cells are heavily stressed. That stress is exactly what forces the body to scramble and rewire itself. It builds new capillaries and strengthens muscle fibers specifically to handle that new, heavier workload. Receiving tough feedback forces your brain into the exact same rewiring process. When you sit down and try to correct a bad habit, you are demanding intense concentration and near maximal effort from your neural network. Those feelings of defensiveness and frustration are simply your brain complaining about being pushed out of its balanced stability. It is the mental equivalent of a muscle burning during a heavy lift. But just like a runner eventually learns to tolerate the pain of a long race, you can actually acclimate to the mental strain of receiving feedback. Over time, it stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a tool. That stomach-turning sting is the biological alarm bell confirming that true growth is actually happening.